Mr. Jay Morrison coming up, our final keynote speaker. Jay is a successful entrepreneur, real estate developer, author, TV personality, and social activist. He's the CEO and founder of the Jay-Morrison brand, which is the parent company to Jay-Morrison-Real-estate Partners. Despite being a high school dropout and at-risk youth, 3-time felon, Jay made a major life transformation over a decade ago and only made his first millionaire before the age of 30, first millionaire before the age of 30, but also prepared him into the national spotlight. He now uses his personal story to truly impact the life of troubled youth, ex-offenders, and business professionals throughout the world. I'm excited to hear from him. Join me in welcoming Mr. Jay Morrison. Let's give it up, y'all. Come on. I'm gonna sit down for this.
Peace, family.
Peace.
That was weak. Peace, family.
Peace.
We're gonna start off like this. I need everyone to repeat after me, please. We all we got.
We all we got.
We all we need.
We all we need.
One more time. We all we got.
We all we got.
We all we need.
We all we need.
In real life.
In real life.
That's right, guys. My name is Mr. Jay Morrison. I'm from New Jersey, but I hail out of Atlanta, Georgia now for the last 7 years. I'm the CEO and founder of the historic Tulsa Real Estate Fund, which is the largest and first Black-owned real estate crowd fund in the history of America.
Wow.
Tulsa Real Estate Fund over the last 3 years, going on 4 years now, raised over $11.5 million with 15,000 partners in a Reg A Tier 2 crowd fund, partners from 22 countries throughout the diaspora, to be the largest Black-owned real estate crowd fund in American history. That's not a J thing, that's a we thing. 15,000 families from 22 countries throughout the diaspora to raise $11.5 million, which is pennies in the raise world. We know that, right? But in our world, it's the most since Marcus Garvey's $800,000 raise, which is equivalent to $10.5 million today in 1921. The most that we've practiced group economics. And I told Chris Senegal when he broke after his speech, I was so inspired by his speech, and we have so much in common. It was like hearing myself talk. I was like, I ain't gotta talk, I just listen to Chris. But I said, we're failing ourselves that Chris and I have each other's numbers, but we haven't talked in a year. Him having a crowd raise out of Houston and killing it, crushing it, buying back the block in real life. With the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, we've done over 26 real estate transactions as a private lender, Mike. We've loaned out over $8.9 million to Black developers around the country. 14-unit apartment complex, 98-unit apartment complex, Macon, Georgia, as an equity partner. We've developed a Black house in Black Mecca, Atlanta, Georgia, a 2.6-acre campus on a 30,000 square foot Class A commercial building, owned free and clear with no mortgage. 2 miles from Tyler Perry's studio, 5 minutes from the world's busiest airport, Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. We put our capital to work through the kinks. Chris talked about on a platform that he said the back-end administration was, we're trying to figure it out. He talked about giving our businesses grace. With the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, when we launched, we raised a little over $4 million in 24 hours through this crowdfund in 2018 on the anniversary of Tulsa, Oklahoma's bombing and massacre, June 1st. And months after we launched, there was a viral swell. We brought in all these supporters, but support and success also brings what? Brings what? Haters. Wow. Puffy and Big called them player haters. That was the original term for haters. It was player haters. It was player hating. But what we've learned is the first one through the door gets the bloodiest. This is the price for freedom. See, as an educator, I've educated over 500,000 students in the last 10 years through the Jay-Morrison-Academy. We've taught real estate and financial literacy online. What most have called and said be the trailblazers and pioneers of online education in our community. Made the Inc. 5000 twice. It's number 588 fastest growing companies in the country. Top 10 educational companies in the country. But what I've learned through my journeys is not about being financially free. See, financially free is just a fuel to our real freedom. We get so caught up in the money and so caught up in the bag and don't even realize we're not even free yet. So what I learned during my journey, right? So guys, I grew up like King Mike and many of us, grew up as a single mom. My mom was 17 years old when she had me. My mom literally was on the abortion table, forced by my grandparents, and got off the abortion table to have me. We're talking about honoring mothers in women's history. That's a true hero. 17-year-old mom, on welfare, on WIC, on Section 8. My biological father left when I was 3 months old. My stepfather came into the picture and went to prison less than a year later. He served over 13 years in prison. We went to visit him back and forth to prisons for robbery, burglary, all kind of charges. My mom sold drugs. She stole sneakers out the store, walked me in the store as a baby. We switched sneakers and we walked back out. She did what she had to do to take care of me. I grew up to a family of hustlers. Hustlers. My grandfather sold drugs. My uncle sold drugs. My aunt sold drugs. So, by 15 years old, you know what I became? A drug dealer. We sat around the family dining room table playing Monopoly and Parcheesi and spades, listening to old war stories about how the cops raided. They put the weed in the blanket with me and walked out past the cop raid. So I always rooted for the bad guys in the movie. But at 15 years old, I started selling drugs with my first pack of coke and crack in New Jersey. By 16 years old, I dropped out of high school. By 17, I went back to an alternative high school with the bad kids and had a drug trafficking ring from Harlem, New York, Somerville, New Jersey, to Baltimore, Maryland, all the way to Lincoln, Nebraska at 17 years old. 4 months after I graduated from that alternative high school, I got locked up in New York with a quarter kilo of coke and a loaded 38 handgun. My first charge ever, 4 days after I turned 18 years old. And I was facing 3 years to life in prison. I served time on Rikers Island, C-74 Mod 3 Upper, then went upstate New York where I was cutting down trees for 13 cents a day. Free labor. School to prison pipeline in real life. When I went to prison though, I got an education. A criminal education. I learned how to sell drugs better. And in New York, they had the game. I got all kind of new connects, new tricks. And I wrote a list of potential customers. I was following one of my cellmates, white boy Eddie from Staten Island. He was a kingpin. And one day he's writing this long list of names. I said, King, what you doing? He said, I'm writing down all the customers in my town. And when I go home, give everybody samples. I said, I want to do that. So I wrote down a list of all the customers in my town, all the things, all those who got high in my town. And at 19 years old, I came home from prison at 19 years old, and I went and served my whole town, took it over. Was back on a drug trafficking ring by 20 years old down in Cumberland, Maryland, where I got locked up again. And they called a secret indictment in New Jersey. So I was out on bail in New Jersey, out on bail in Maryland, on parole still in New York. And I'm like, well, I'm about to go away for a long time, so I might as well stack up. So I still was hustling. So I sold drugs while on 2 bails and out on parole while going to court for a 15-year sentence. My lawyer beat our charge through a legal search and seizure by the cops. The cops legally searched vehicles, saved my life. Had they not, I've been doing 15 years, wouldn't be any Jay Morrison. This should be Maine in prison. So I went to prison in Maryland. And after 18 months in prison in Maryland and New Jersey, my cellmate was a double lifer. He had 2 homicides for 2 murders he committed. He was 20 years old. He was 53 years old when I met him. And I got more criminal game while in jail in Maryland. I said, I'm gonna come home. I'm really gonna be the man this time. So I doubled down on my education in prison. Came home at 22 years old. And at 22 years old, I was in a men's group on a Saturday just like this. And while on parole, intensive supervision parole, I was gonna leave parole because I hated the curfew, I hated the drug test. And our mentor, Pastor Antoine Thomas, said, take this business card. My wife's a processor at a mortgage company. I want you to try to get this job. For the first time, I went into this mortgage company and they introduced me to mortgage financing. And in honor of Women's History Month, When I got this job, my khakis on, my button up, I knew nothing about a mortgage, a loan, a lien, an ARV, an LTV, a ROI, a cap rate, or any of that. My Aunt Karen gave me an opportunity to refinance her house. And I made $2,700. And then my grandmother, who just passed away 2 weeks ago, rest in power, Grand, my ancestor now, she gave me an opportunity to refinance her house. And I made about $3,300. So I made $6,000 my first 30 days doing mortgages, and I'm like, this ain't that bad. Pushing papers. Backtracking, when I was 19 years old, coming home from prison in New York, my mom was living with my grandmother, our whole family, six of us, excuse me. She had four, I'm the oldest of four, my mom, my stepdad, we all live in my grandmother's house, Graham's house, Big Mama's house. I'm paroled in the grandmama's house. My mom comes in one day and says, man, I need to borrow some money. I got approved for a house around the corner. It's in the hood. It's $100,000, and I need $3,000 down to buy this house. I said, Mom, go to Timberland box right there and grab a few bags. So I was a cash partner for my mom's first purchase, FHA, in 1999. My mom bought a house for $100,000, 69 Center Street, Somerville, New Jersey. 4 years later, that property appreciated $100,000 in value. A house we never repaired, we never renovated. I actually trapped off the porch. That means sold drugs. That property, my mom was losing it through a foreclosure and tax lien 4 years later, right, after the mortgage company. And that property, me having some knowledge of real estate, we tried to refinance my mom, but she couldn't refinance because of the late payments on her mortgage. So we decided to sell the house and cash out. We sold that house and made about $90,000+ profit, the first money of that size my family's ever seen legally. So my mom said, I'm gonna take care of you because I paid off her tax lien, her foreclosure. I had a Lincoln Navigator. I paid cash for. I said, how I drive around this big truck, my mom's losing her house, that's backwards. So I sold my truck, paid my mom's tax lien off. We sold the property, and my mom gave me $33,000 of the $90,000+ we made. That was my introduction into real estate. So I took that $33,000 and I went and bought 700 grams of cocaine. Like I thought you thought I was going to just leave? You don't leave a game that easy. This is all before 25 years old. This is my real life. I had another close call with the feds and said, you know what, this is getting too sticky. I was sending coke down to Maryland, that's 700 grams and 5 pounds of weed. It got caught by our transporter. I said, yo, she would have told on me, I'm going forever. She didn't tell, we bailed her out, and then she beat an illegal search and seizure. So I said, you know what? Enough of that coke route. I'm about to sell dope in Newark. So I switched my hustle, started selling heroin in Newark, New Jersey. But one day, at 25 years old, I'm selling heroin in Newark, New Jersey. I'm supplying the block. I'm not out there pitching, but I'm watching what's going on. Like the true boss that I am. True big homie. But I asked myself, Jay, where are you going to be when you're 30? You've been hustling since you were 15 years old. Racked up 3 felonies, served time in 3 different states, and you still selling drugs. You never gave anything your full attention, your full energy, but the block. What if you were to take all this business acumen, all this hustle, all these late nights, early mornings, all this savvy, what if you were to put it, all this charisma, all this swag, let's not forget that, all these good looks. What if you were to put that into something else full-time, into real estate full-time? And I literally, that day, I broke my trap phone. I said, I want to challenge myself. Are you a true hustler or are you a drug dealer? Because see, a true hustler can hustle anything. Only a drug dealer could just sell drugs. I said, I'm a true hustler. I can sell water to a well. If you can do that, you should be able to go into real estate and go make some noise. So I broke my trap phone. I left the game permanently in 2005. I got my mortgage license again. I bought my first duplex of 4 acres of land. Got my real estate license after I saw the commission my realtor made on my duplex. So I had my mortgage license, I became a landlord, and had my real estate license and started my first company, Mr. Real Estate LLC, 2005. By 28 years old, I made my first million in the industry. Then I worked my way up to become a celebrity realtor on NBC's Open House NYC. And I would show multi-million-dollar homes on Sunday mornings on NBC, to national viewership. Then Today Show called me from NBC and said, hey, we need a real estate expert. I became a real estate expert for the Today Show. Same me, no college education, 3-time felon from the block, is now on national TV giving advice on Today Show. I'm like, look at God. I was hired by prominent property, Sotheby's International Realty, as the first black man hired by Sotheby's in Bergen County, New Jersey. I brought in our office's highest listing of $10 million, a French chateau in Alpine, New Jersey. And I began this journey, right? And through my story and putting it out there, my transformation story, I started going viral and gaining influence online and social media and writing my first book, Hip Hop to Homeowners. I'm a 4-time author now, 2-time best-selling author. But through that journey, I thought it was all about financial literacy and bridging the wealth gap. Initially, I thought it was all about just me and building my bag. Then I got less selfish and thought it was about us and just financial literacy. Then I became socially aware and conscious through acts of activism. Alfred Wright, who was lynched in Hempville, Texas. I met his sister in Las Vegas. She said my brother was lynched. He was found with his eyes gouged out, his throat slit, teeth missing. And we think that the local sheriffs in Hempville, Texas, did something to him. When she spoke to me in Las Vegas, I happened to see that on CNN Anderson Cooper the night before. In my couch in New Jersey before Vegas, I'm watching this black man found in the woods, and I shed tears on my couch. 2 days later, I'm talking to his sister in Las Vegas. So I knew it was God. So I went to Hempville, Texas. That was my first time ever being on the front line in activism. I then met other political leaders and social activists, and I saw I had a higher purpose than just me, just financial literacy, just my community. And I started becoming more of a social activist. Really, just to me, it's not even a social activist. It's just the job of a black man in his community. If our community is oppressed, it's our job to fix it. That's why I said we all we got, we all we need. If we don't have it, we have to build it. So I talked about the little raise of the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, $11.5 million, little in the raise world. But do you know if we did that 86 times, that'd be $1 billion of capital under management? Just 86 Tulsa real estate funds, Chris. We'll have $1 billion of capital under management. And I didn't get the first fund all right. I didn't get it all right. They made online noise, and we got investigated by the SEC and the FBI. I was shaking in my Ferraganos. I know I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm a black man who raised massive capital in America, who's a former 3-time felon, who was front line for Freddie Gray in Baltimore, under FBI surveillance, and that was on HBO Vice, who was front line for Jamarian Robinson in Atlanta, who was front line for Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge. I said, oh, they done set me up, they got me. But after an 18-month investigation, both the SEC and the FBI both came back and said no findings. Because of strong management, because of God's grace, because of fiduciary responsibility. So we're still working on that fund, haven't gotten it all right. But what I learned in this process of this story, this journey, and there's so much more to tell in the short minutes I have left. But what I learned is that we always talk about buying back the block and building Black Wall Street, in the hospitals, the hotels, the buildings, the residential. But do you know the first thing when O.W. Gurley left Mississippi and bought 40 acres of land in Tulsa Town, which was called Tulsa, Oklahoma? You know the first thing O.W. Gurley did when he bought the 40 acres of land and then sold some to J.B. Stafford, and he started in 1905 what we call modern-day Black Wall Street of Tulsa? The first thing they had to do with the bought land was cultivate the land. They had to feed themselves. You gotta build Black Wall Street from the land up. If you don't control your own food, you don't control your own water, you still depend on the same people that's oppressing you. I'm talking about comprehensive freedom. See, when we were freed from our chattel enslavement, yes, we were freed from those chains, but then this once self-governing people, this once really free people, this African people from Africa brought here, this African people that were already here as Moors, this African people that were the indigenous people here in America were put into chattel slaves, but they once ruled themselves. But in 1865, when the chattel enslavement was ruled, except you commit a crime, you could be enslaved again, the 13th Amendment loophole. But when the chattel enslavement ended, they made us citizens under the American government. What's a citizen? It's a subject under the rule of an authority. See, there's once free people that once ruled themselves, that once governed themselves, that once provided for themselves, is still subjects under the same people that conquered and kidnapped them. So when I talk about financial freedom, when I mention Jay Morrison's name, when I do a fund, the fund wasn't about really buying back the block in real estate. The fund was proving a concept of group economics that could be duplicatable and scalable to give us institutions to fight the institution that's oppressing us. So you need systems to beat systems. Individuals can't beat systems. Only systems can beat systems. So on my journey, I believe God called me to be a vessel, to be a vehicle, to collaborate and to help organize and mobilize us and use my business acumen, my life experiences to help us get free. Not just financially free, but comprehensively free as a people to where we actually have our own land. We have our own governing body. We have our own culture. We have our own swag. We control everything that happens to and with us. And with that, then we truly have Black power.